Imagine trying to manage the competing needs of 28 different states in 8 union territories. It is an administrative puzzle of, well, absolutely epic proportions. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking one of the most fascinating balancing acts in modern governance, India's constitutional tug-of-war. You see, to govern over 1 billion people speaking hundreds of different languages, the Constitution relies on what's called a quasi-federal structure. Basically, it distributes power between a central authority and the individual states. But, and here's the massive catch highlighted in our source material, this system operates with a decisively strong center. To keep the whole machine running smoothly and to stop states from pulling in completely opposite directions, the Constitution lays out a highly specific set of rules under Parts 11 and 12. So we're going to dive right into our sources to map out exactly how this intricate balance actually works on the ground.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll look at India's federal power dynamics, administrative rules and control, sharing the national wealth, landmark constitutional court battles, and finally, cooperative federalism in action. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. India's Federal Power Dynamics. The tug-of-war begins.
Moving to Section 2, Administrative Rules and Control. Basically, who tells who what to do.
Okay, to really understand this dynamic, we have to start with the foundational premise of the Indian Constitution. It purposefully sets up a federal structure, but it's one where the center is decisively designed to act as the team captain. This setup is all about ensuring absolute national unity while still giving regional governments room to operate. But how does a team captain actually keep the players in line day in and day out? Well, that's exactly where Part 11 of the Constitution comes in, laying out what we call administrative relations. Think of this as the ultimate playbook. It defines the distribution and control of executive powers between the center and the states. It's the practical, everyday machinery of how the government executes its duties, without the whole thing just collapsing into total chaos.
This playbook has some incredibly specific and honestly sometimes surprising rules packed into Articles 256 through 263. First off, Article 256 makes it a strict obligation for states to comply with laws made by Parliament. The center isn't just suggesting things here, it can actively issue directions to force compliance. Then look at Article 257. This dictates that state executive power absolutely cannot hinder the union. It gives the center total control over crucial infrastructure, like the protection of railways and national communications. And why railways? Well, in a country this vast, railways aren't just transportation. They're the logistics network for the military and the lifeblood of the national economy. The center literally cannot afford a state blocking a train line during a crisis. But you know, the system also needs a human element to stay glued together. That brings us to Article 312 and the creation of all India services, like the IAS and IPS. Imagine passing an exam in New Delhi, but spending your entire career embedded in the state government of Kerala or Assam. These officers are recruited centrally, but serve locally, creating this living, breathing tissue of shared loyalty across the entire country. And because this web of shared power is bound to create friction, Article 263 sets up the Interstate Council. It acts as a sort of diplomatic table to resolve disputes before they can paralyze the government.
So, that is the standard day-to-day playbook. But it begs a pretty critical question. What happens to this carefully constructed balance when a massive crisis hits?
Well, during an emergency, this federal balance is designed to dynamically shift. The center gains far greater control over state administration, effectively acting as a massive constitutional override switch. When a national emergency is declared, the quasi-federal system essentially transforms into a unitary one overnight. Suddenly, the center can legislate on matters usually strictly reserved for the states. It can redirect state funds, issue direct executive orders to state governments, and, in cases of state-level emergencies, even assume the powers of the state legislature entirely. It's a fail-safe built on the philosophy that during times of severe crisis, like a war or internal rebellion, swift, unified national action absolutely has to override regional autonomy.
Section 3. Sharing the national wealth. Following the money.
Shifting into Part 12 of the Constitution, we hit financial relations. Because let's be real, to truly understand where power lies in any system, you have to follow the money. The Constitution creates this fascinating, highly layered tax matrix from Articles 268 to 272. Let's translate this into how a citizen's money actually moves in the real world. Imagine you're buying a house. The center sets the rules for the stamp duty you pay to ensure uniformity across the country, but the local state government actually collects and keeps that cash to fund local projects.
Now, consider your personal income tax. The center handles the heavy, complex lifting of levying and collecting it nationally, but it doesn't just pocket the whole thing. It takes that massive pool of revenue and splits the pot with the states. Then you have areas of pure federal control, like customs duties at international borders, where the center levies and retains every single rupee. And on the flip side, states have their own exclusive financial lifelines, collecting taxes like state GST and excise duties on alcohol. It is an absolute masterclass in financial interdependence, making sure neither entity can easily survive without the other.
But taxation is only one part of the financial story. The reality is, not all states are born equal. Geographically and historically, a landlocked mountainous state simply doesn't have the same economic engine or tax base as a state with massive coastal ports and booming tech hubs. This is where Article 275 comes into play, acting as the great constitutional equalizer through grants and aid. The center uses its massive resources to provide direct financial assistance to states that are in need. And to be clear, this isn't a loan, it's a strategic transfer of wealth to ensure that developing regions can still provide basic human services, education, and infrastructure. It's absolutely crucial for preventing extreme regional wealth gaps from tearing the national fabric apart.
Managing this constant flow of unimaginable wealth requires some pretty powerful machinery. Our sources detail 3 key gears that regulate this tension. First up, we have the Finance Commission under Article 280. Every 5 years, this independent body acts as a crucial umpire. They assess the financial health of the nation and recommend exactly how that central tax revenue pot should be distributed, essentially resetting the rules of the game based on current realities. Second is the modern marvel of the GST Council. This is a joint body of both central and state finance ministers who literally sit at the same table to cooperatively make taxation decisions. Finally, Articles 292 and 293 outline borrowing powers, and this acts as a massive point of leverage. While states can theoretically borrow money from the market to fund big projects, if they have any outstanding loans from the center, which, let's face it, almost all do, they explicitly need the center's consent to borrow more. This gives the center a powerful oversight tool to prevent individual states from recklessly driving themselves into unrecoverable debt.
Moving on to Section 4, Landmark Constitutional Court Battles, the referees.
So, we have the rules, but what happens when the center and the states furiously disagree on what those rules actually mean? Enter the Supreme Court. The source material highlights 2 massive clashes that perfectly illustrate the evolution of this relationship. Back in the early 1960s, in the case of the state of West Bengal v. Union of India, a huge dispute arose. The question was, could the central government forcibly acquire property owned by a state without its consent? The court definitively ruled yes, the center has overriding powers, cementing the early judicial view that India is quasi-federal with an absolutely dominant center. But fast forward a few decades, and a massive plot twist arrives in the form of S.R. Bommai v. Union of India. Here, the issue had shifted to the arbitrary dismissal of state governments by the center, essentially weaponizing those emergency powers we talked about earlier. In a landmark pushback, the Supreme Court ruled that federalism isn't just a suggestion, it is a part of the Constitution's basic structure, meaning it couldn't be easily altered or ignored. This effectively placed strict historic limits on the arbitrary use of central power and protected state autonomy like never before.
Section 5, Cooperative Federalism in Action, Balancing the Scales.
Our source material concludes its analysis with this really vital summary. It says, the Constitution ensures a balanced relationship between center and states through administrative and financial provisions. While the center is stronger, these mechanisms promote cooperative federalism and effective governance. Now, why does this matter to us, the average citizen? Because this messy, highly complex sharing of power is exactly what keeps our roads paved, our hospitals staffed, and our schools funded. You see, the system was never designed for one side to completely dominate and crush the other. The strong center exists to anchor the nation for sure, but the detailed sharing of money, personnel, and power acts as the daily engine of cooperative federalism. It's this incredibly practical compromise that allows over 1 billion people to remain united under one flag without ever having to sacrifice their unique regional identities.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really think about the incredible tension we've explored today. Does a constitutionally strong center act as an overbearing parent that ultimately restricts the freedom and potential of individual states? Or, in a nation of such staggering diversity and scale, is that powerful center the absolutely necessary ultimate anchor required to prevent the whole structure from drifting apart? It's a delicate, ongoing tug-of-war that defines and tests the Indian Constitution every single day. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating source material.